Hey all, this is Moonie here. Hi-ho! Kermit the Frog here, coming to you with another video. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, we're here with the new Poppy rework that they have on League of Legends that I was able to luckily mess around with a couple of games. This is the shortest game that I had, and I feel like the best to kind of show you guys how the new Poppy works. I also played against a top lane Poppy as well. He was going for more of a bruiser, I believe. I was going for pure tank. As you can tell on the chat, I was pretty happy that Poppy did get a remake. I've been waiting for her graphics to be remade, but the work on her kit that they did is actually pretty dope as well. It's kind of funny that they reworked her in this way when they just had the new female tanky juggernaut-ish Illowai. I believe that's her name, Illowai. However, with Poppy, she definitely has more utility in the sense of crowd control. I would definitely build her more tanky, whether I used her in the jungle or in the top lane. She's really not a support champion. Like, she's not a support tank. Not one that I would use. I'm not like a very high skill player though. I'm like silver or gold at best. But just for me, I just really don't see her having much utility in bottom lane, at least for the old bottom lane that was basically a support ADC combo. I know that there's changes up in there. Anyway, so you have, you can see how the buckler is being used, her new passive. That definitely seems, for a second I thought it was basically useless. Mostly just because I thought, like, wow, it does such little damage, and when it procs, it's not even going to be that big of a deal. However, for hard last hits and just kind of harassing your enemy in general, it is actually pretty okay. As you can see, we've traded it with a couple of her Qs, and I'm not sure if I just have better runes or because I started with a Doran shield, if that had any real reasoning to why I'm winning these trades. But this is something that you'll consistently see throughout the whole game. One thing about her though is she's very mana reliant, and especially when you get her full kit, her QWE up. I felt like I was only using about maybe each utility like once or twice, and then my mana was almost completely gone. As far as her, I mean, she's definitely a top lane champion. I think that's where she's going to be the best. She's the best. There's a couple reasons why I think she's the best for top lane. She definitely has some range on her Q. The way that works, as you can see right here, like how there's like a little, how it'll kind of wait there for a second and then the ground will explode. That is awesome because that can kind of dictate where you want your enemy to go. And even as you can see on here, I barely won that exchange. I barely got the first blood on that. That's mostly because you also have to be careful of timing. You don't want to go all in with your stuff if the other if Poppy has her cooldowns, and that's just for playing against her. Like, she is definitely anti-gank in the sense of like gap closers like Lee Sin, even Kindred, because she could really shut down Ingrid's Q with her W. She could basically shut down any gap closers other than like Ezreal and Rek'Sai, because Ezreal teleports. It's not really a gap closer in the traditional sense, and Rek'Sai can dig underground. So as far as I know, that doesn't work. As you can see, I'm building her with Dead Man's Plate first. This is really kind of situational on this. I would probably rush the Black Cleaver first. I mean, just personally, just because of the fact that you're getting health and damage. However, with this, when I'm building a tank, I always want to get tanky items first. That damage for me is purely secondary. Dead Man's Play, I think, worked out really great on her, just because, as you can see, it definitely lets me like win the trades in terms of sustaining. She tries to burst me down here a couple of times, but I just, with the armor and everything else, I just am constantly winning the trades, and I don't think she even kills me once throughout this whole game. I'm not 100% sure. The wave clear isn't as great as it could be. I'm really wanting to toy around with how the Rift Hunter, the new little like mob that's right on top lane that you're supposed to get. I haven't really seen many people use it yet, so I think that might be kind of like a fail on Riot so far. I'm not 100% sure. It just might be because the other people in the meta just aren't going for it. I'm not 100% sure on it. But this, you see that I actually did get a kill off the buckler, so it is actually okay for certain things like that. My jungle comes in, and we actually end up taking out this Elise as well, I believe. I don't understand why she dives that far in at that time when I really don't understand. I think that was just kind of a misplay on her part. So as you can see, she's very when it comes to top lane, I mean, she's very counter gank. With it she can be protected from ganks from anywhere, and especially when she gets her ult. If someone comes in at you close, you can just knock them back and then retreat to your tower. If someone has a dash, boom, you use your W. If you want to kind of kite, and that's the whole thing too, she definitely has kiting ability with her buckler. The buckler actually has an extremely low cooldown. I don't know if other people would agree with that, but I mean, I think it's like 15 or 16 seconds at most. So the fact that you can actually use that every 15 or 16 seconds to get a ranged hit is pretty okay, because you're still able to chip away from afar. Her Q is definitely awesome because it definitely has that little delay where the ground explodes after. So if someone's chasing you, you could just boom, hit Q, let them run over the explosion. Wait until the little 7. I mean, it's like, as you can see, it's already a 7-second cooldown. If you build CDR, then you'll be even getting less of that cooldown, and then it becomes, she can definitely harass while also kiting. With this, I'm going to talk a little bit more about her kit, how it differs from the regular Poppy. I was never really a Poppy main, except for when I first started League. She's still definitely Poppy in the sense of her character, lore, and basically her playstyle. However, where Poppy kind of had that like Tryndamere quality where she could use her ult and basically go in anywhere and get a for sure kill, they definitely took away that part of her. But I feel like the trade-off was pretty awesome, because other than her ult and her dash, she was basically pretty useless in terms of the modern day League and modern day meta. In this, I think she'll actually be used I think she'll be used a lot in the meta now, just because of how much CC and utility she has. Her Q is basically somewhat the same. I mean, it's still a strong hit. With this, it hits in a line, has a little bit of ranged on it, and then you get that delay where it also blows up. So it gives Poppy some range that she didn't have for, I mean, people kind of like Darius, that'll help out a little bit, just so that way you're not having to get so close to him. But what I think is really cool, the most awesome change to her kit was actually her W. That is really awesome, because we haven't seen that for a champion yet, and I thought at first, when I first saw the remake and when I was watching videos on the Champion Spotlight, I was like, okay, that looks pretty stupid. But now, after using it and that kind of stuff, I mean, if you have a Lucian that is like moving around with his dash, boom, you can shut that down. In Aurelia, if she's top lane or jungle, boom, you can shut down her gap closing. And that kind of stuff. It's just, there's a lot of people that if they're using dash or they're kind of like moving around a lot. Oh, Ari, another one, her ult too. If she's dashing around and you just want her to kind of keep still, boom. You can use her W, and that completely stops her just for one time. After that, her dashes, the dashes can keep continuing, but I believe it also gives her a little bit of a buff in the terms of armor and magic resistance. You can see that I'm teleporting her down here as she's going to act like kind of somewhat traditional tank. That was my first use of her ult. That was just, I should have charged it up a little bit more to knock them back. However, it turned out okay in the sense of I knocked him up, and that gave Shen some time to save himself, and then some other time for Misfortune to relocate herself. Why Twisted Fate comes in here, I kind of don't know. I think he just wasn't paying attention. I'm actually surprised I got out of this, especially since I was ignited. As you can see, she can take a lot of heavy damage, especially I don't even have Dead Man's Play. I only have a little bit of armor and then a health item. and I was able to basically, I think I tanked up to like 3 of them at that fight. I'm not 100% sure. Her item, she's really not like item based. I think out of this whole fight, I only built the Dead Man's Plate and then the Black Cleaver. I think that's all this was a very short game though, but I was still able to tank basically seamlessly. In terms of tanks, I feel like she's pretty uber she's almost like a Braum in the sense of how much damage she can take. One thing I didn't like is that she doesn't, other than her her W, she doesn't really have that much damage mitigation for her kit anymore. And like I mentioned her ult earlier, that part I really miss about her. Like I'm gonna miss like the whole like all out poppy diving and getting that for sure kill with like maybe a little bit of high damage if you build some armor penetration on her or something. But with the Black Cleaver, honestly, you should be able to do pretty decent damage, while also still maintaining your role as a tank. On here, as you can see, she with Aatrox and Poppy, the dragon kill is still pretty kind of slow. But another thing I want to talk about is the change to her dash, which is her E. The dash, I think this is awesome in the way that they kind of modernized it. They basically just, the way they changed it is I think they added a little bit more range on it, and then now if you run into terrain, it also stuns the enemy that you carried, which is really pretty cool, because that gives such crowd control ability that if you land it right, I would almost only use it I would only use it if you're saving someone on your team, like getting an enemy away from them. But other than that, you should always try to aim it towards terrain, so that way you get the stun. Otherwise, I feel like it's almost a little bit just not like a necessarily waste of mana, but not something that you'll be using a lot within the game. As you can see, the enemy Poppy basically used her ult just to get me away from her minions or herself. I don't know if she was scared that I was going to kill her or what. The trades here are actually pretty. I mean, these are pretty even. But as you can see, when it comes to sustaining, I just out-sustain her basically every fight. Where she's not doing anything bad. Her mana is still okay. Up, and I missed that. See, yeah, with her ult, it's like really, it's one of those things to where you have to use it at the correct time, and you probably really have to get used to it. Right there, I probably shouldn't have used it because of the fact that it was just too, yeah, see. And then I should have saved it, especially for something like this, because that could have got me out of that situation. Plus, it was pretty mana heavy, but I still ended up getting the kill, so it was a 1-for-1, and they had to get their jungler and their mid up there to kill me. So that took them away from their other lanes. This also helped that I had a pretty good team, and their jungle just really wasn't harassing me that much. So I was able to build up into a Dead Man's Plate. It's at 1326. I could have got it a little bit faster if I wasn't kind of wandering around at some points. But I felt like I got it at an okay speed. Her ult, with her ult, I think it's one of those things to where you're either going to love it or hate it. If you land it, it could be pretty awesome. I wouldn't necessarily use it on just one enemy unless you're really trying to get that enemy away from you or get trying to land a kill. It's just a really trolly ult. I know that people were very, very pissed off at life-saving ults and that kind of stuff, and I don't really know if you would call this a life-saving ult. It definitely could be that. But it's something to where it would only save your life in terms of how I showed you with ganks and that kind of stuff. If I had saved it for when Twisted Fate and Elise came to my lane, then they would have got smacked back basically halfway to their nexus, and then I would have been safe. But instead, those two bitches decided to kill me. But that was also my fault. As you can see on here with her Q, it really doesn't do much in the sense of wave clear, but it does way more than any other of her abilities in her old kit used to. The old Poppy was not a wave clearer at all. She would basically, unless you built for some reason a Hydra on her, you would just be killing them one by one. At least here her Q gives you an advantage to the point to where you can, at least hit about 3 or 4. Actually, if you have them grouped up in a line, you could actually probably hit a couple more. So yeah, this trade-off, I don't know if I should have won. I think it was just because of the dash that I won, and I killed her with her buckler again. So the buckler is actually really, now that I'm looking at it from this point of view, the buckler is actually pretty good for getting that last little chip of health on a champion. With her, like I said, I don't know if she's using the right, or he or she was using the right runes, but I just kind of feel that my runes were a little bit more based on what Poppy should be for a tank. Because I shouldn't, with these kind of trades, as far as I know, he was building a Black Cleaver, so he still shouldn't have been, if anything, he should have been out-sustaining me, or at least doing a little bit more damage to me. But I digress. As far as Poppy goes, I think you'd be able, she's definitely a top lane or a jungle. I would be really interested in seeing her jungle. I haven't used it yet, I haven't seen it yet. But I think it would be pretty interesting in the sense that she wouldn't be able to accumulate a lot of mobs. So you're definitely not going to build Devourer on her. If anything, you're going to probably, the best thing would be a Cinder Hulk, at least in my opinion. Like I said, I'm not a pro or anything, but I think a Cinder Hulk would definitely be the best in terms of utility for her, because I know that you could build her as a bruiser, but there's just better bruisers out there, better, like, what you call juggernauts, like Illaoi. I wouldn't use in the jungle. I haven't really seen anyone use her in the jungle either, but she's definitely, I could definitely see how Illaoi would be an awesome bot lane support for like harassing and that kind of stuff, especially with the new meta coming up with bot lane kind of changing. Illaoi definitely has way more, harassing things that synergy that your ADCs could play off of, and that kind of stuff. But like with Poppy, her strength is definitely going to be top lane, especially with Quinn going top lane a little bit more. I mean, Quinn was, I guess, an ADC, but I mean, was she ever really an ADC? I mean, come on now, you know what I mean? I guess she, before I get all the people like, Quinn is definitely an ADC, man. Oh, that, okay, if you saw that part, that is the bad use of her ult. That is where I was trying to make sure that Miss Fortune was going to be safe, and so that way they couldn't re-engage us while she was using her ult. But I just ended up saving Twisted Fate from Miss Fortune. Like I said, I'm not a great player. And the ult is definitely something you have to get used to. Maybe my whole mentality was I was just going to go for that kill too. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, you definitely have to use the ult using it on just one person is not a good idea. I mean, to me, it'd be a waste of time unless that person was going to kill you. So back to what I was saying. Yeah, Poppy would really only, to me, top lane is where she's at, and that's where her home should be. She definitely has the best utility in top lane. Like I mentioned earlier, she can stop gap closer. She can stop dashing. She can stop gap closing. She definitely has the utility in where she can stun people that would make it easier for when your jungle comes up to help gank. And she also she has an ability to kind of hurt. To have group damage, somewhat AoE damage. I wouldn't really call her Q AoE damage, but in terms of wave clear, it's better than what a lot of the other tanks have at this point in time. I mean, unless you're using someone like Darius, but Darius has gotten nerfed to a certain extent. If anything, I feel like she would be a good hard counter towards Darius, because you could still harass him from kind of afar with his Q and your buckler, and then for ganks, you could stun him with your dash. And if he's just getting in your face and about to use his little dunk on you, then you could just fucking hit him into oblivion with your ult if you need to get away from him. And with the W stops gap closers, but it also gives you some armor and magic resistance, so that's just good to have regardless. She's basically a super tank on this now. My team doesn't really have many team fights in this, so I can't really show you guys the synergy, the composition, but she's definitely frontline. You want Poppy to be like your initiator. If anything, what I would say is if you're playing Poppy or playing with a Poppy, wait until she uses her dash to stun someone, and if it's a good Poppy, then she'll definitely be focusing like either the mid or the squishy or the ADC. And then once you get that stun, boom, you just collapse on them, and you basically make them say, "Hey, Daddy, stop it! Daddy, stop it!" You're not that you're gonna molest the ADC, but you're basically just gonna you're gonna just destroy them at that point. I mean, with the amount of her stun, it's pretty long. I actually think it's gonna get nerfed. But the Jinx does some pretty... See, that's a pretty smart Jinx at that point, where she flashes away. And she flashes, I think, back into the river. I'm not 100% sure where she... Oh, no, she flashed back to that area. So that way she can retreat back to her tower. This is the end of the game right here. Why that Poppy decides to stay top, I am not 100% sure. I think that person didn't really even know how to use the old Poppy that much. But we just basically, I ping right there because I see a free inhibitor turret, and I'm just like, let's do this right now. I really try to do wave clear and focus on the minions right here, but it's just, I'm just not as good as like Yasuo or a Misfortune, so then I just basically focus on the tower and then the inhibitor. I think after this they decided to surrender, and yep, there you go, 4-1. So I hope this was just a little glimpse into what Poppy is now, and thanks you guys for watching.